Welcome to LOA Today. Walt Thiessen and life coach Wendy Dillard here. Today is Thursday, August the 23rd, 2018, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, your second daily dose of happy for the day. And I am happy that we're able to do this podcast because, as I was telling Wendy before the show, we've got construction going on above our heads. So I'm not sure how well the podcast is going to go without a bunch of hammering and nailing going on, but, you know, we'll just play it by ear, and this is like this is an opportunity to see how well can I ignore what is, because like what is always in my face, right? It's in all of our faces at all times, and this is like a really big what is when you've got somebody pounding on your ceiling, you know. So can you ignore the what is and start focusing on what you want instead? This is the test. At least that's the way I'm looking at it.
That's an interesting idea, because the other day I was out driving from one location to another. I had some errands to run, and huge downpour. I mean, mega. Now, something that happened to my car a long time ago is I got rear-ended, and so all of the rear sensors got adjusted. And when the mechanic went to make or the body worker went to make the adjustments to everything, they said they found a bigger problem that was not part of the actual rear ending.
Okay.
And apparently at one point in the past, whoever had owned my car previous to me, there had been some kind of a flood or something where the car had gone through, where it affected, or it came up pretty high in the car, and it touched all of the wiring.
Lovely.
What do you call it? Whatever the thing is, there's like a set of wires that go through the entire car that manage the electrical system. And it corroded some of the wiring, which was connected to one of my 4 rear sensors. And at the time, it was something like a couple $1,000s to replace all of the wiring. They couldn't just replace one, they have to replace it all. And so anyway, at the time I didn't have the money, and I said, you know what, not worth it to me. Well, what happened is, instead of my sensors only going off when I'm backing up to let me know I'm within so many feet of hitting something, now they go off like I don't know if it's one sensor or all of them, much more sensitive. And so, like, if I'm on the highway and let's say a semi truck flies past me, my sensors all go off. So I'm not that. I mean, their sensors are only supposed to go off when you're in reverse, but mine don't do that. They don't follow the reverse. They go off anytime it senses anything's too close. And that includes wind, because wind creates a vibration, especially when a semi is flying by you. Well, the reason I bring this up is because it also works when there's a really heavy downpour of rain.
Oh, no.
And so when I first started to realize how this negatively impacted my car, I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And all I could focus on were these sensors going off continually while I'm driving. And what's so funny is, you know, you were just saying, can I not pay attention to the hammering going on upstairs?
Right.
You know what? I was going through a huge rainstorm the other day, the kind where you don't know if you need to pull over because it's so bad.
Oh, yeah.
And I was probably going through it for about 20 minutes when I realized, oh, yeah, my sensors have been going off for all this time, but I don't even notice them anymore.
Cool.
They're just like in the background noise. It's like they're part of the rain noise. That doesn't bother me. I'm still listening to Abraham on the CD player. No big deal. But it is interesting how you can shift your attention. And I kind of did it. Was it purposeful? Yes, because I remember setting the intention. I no longer want to be annoyed by the sensors when they go off during rain, but I do want to still be aware of the sensors so that when I am backing up, I really use them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But what you're saying makes sense, because, I mean, I guess the classic example would be somebody who lives in a big city underneath the elevated train. And every time the train goes by, the whole building shakes. But they've lived there long enough, they don't even notice it anymore. It's just like background, and it's like they don't even pay any attention at all. So somebody says, wow, does that happen all the time? They say, what?
What happened?
Yeah, right. What are you talking about?
Exactly. So whatever it is, if we hear it, maybe you won't unless you're heightened to it. But, we'll just let it roll and see what happens.
Exactly. Yeah. And the cool part is, of course, I have a mute button. That helps me to make sure that the audience hears it as little as possible. And plus, by talking about this in a lighthearted tone, I'm not quite sure exactly how it's impacting them, but I can just tell you, since we started the podcast, the noise has reduced considerably.
That's pretty cool.
I'm not sure what's going on there, but maybe they're on a coffee break. I don't know.
Well, what brought up this topic is an event that happened for me yesterday, and it culminated in a conversation this morning, where I was going to meet one of my colleagues from my previous, that's a fun word to say, my previous job. He was in town.
You like that one, I know.
And yes. And because I haven't had a commute in years, first of all, I'm not really keen on, or I should say knowledgeable anymore, on what route is the best to take to certain places. Our city has undergone so much road construction over the last 10 years that, frankly, I don't even know what roads are open and versus what's closed anymore. So I thought to myself, well, I'm meeting him at 9 o'clock, which is at the tail end of rush hour. And I think it's I think it was like 32 miles. I think if I give myself an hour, I should be fine. So then I was like, well, maybe I should give myself an hour and a half. Well, as that day unfolded and the alarm clock went off, I was checking in with my inner being, and it's like, nope, you don't have to leave that early. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to sleep some more. So by the time I got ready to roll, it was maybe 10 after 8. So part of me logically was thinking, I've already lost 10 minutes and I don't want to be late. Checked in with my inner being and it's all good. I'm like, okay, you've cleared the roads. Yep, got it done. And I even went to my Google Maps, which I had pulled up the night before, because there's 3 different ways to get there. And so I was going to take route number 3. And when I got up that morning, I felt inclined to go to my computer and look. And, it gives you real-time traffic. Well, had I done route number 3, it would have added 45 minutes to my drive.
Oh, yeah. You want to avoid that one.
Which is really crazy because that's the one with the toll roads. And yet it was significantly a longer route than the ones that were non-toll.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to pay to sit in traffic.
No.
So I was pleased that I was following my inner guidance. And I checked my computer, saw, nope, need to go route number 2 instead. I'm like, yay. So when I get in my car, what I think is 10 minutes late, I got the guidance. You're on time. Everything's good. And I said, okay. So inner being, you've got all this under control. Yep. Okay, cool. So I start out. And one of the things I always make sure I do, especially because you never know how traffic is going to be, I've gone to the bathroom beforehand because there's nothing as horrible to me as getting stuck in traffic and all of a sudden feeling that inclination to use the bathroom.
Well, I don't blame you. That makes sense. I mean, there are basics when you travel.
Yeah, so it's like everything's cool. So I start heading out, and I'm like, wow, traffic is flowing really nice. This is cool. Okay, no wonder this is the better route. And then I start to see tail lights that are in red and slowing traffic ahead of me. And I go into panic is way too strong of a word here, but I went into a little bit of worry and concern because I'm looking at the clock and I'm looking at the traffic and we've barely even begun the journey. So I check in and I say, should I jump off? And I got, no, just stay on the road. Now, mind you, I'm talking to my inner being. I've got my navigation up on my dashboard. So I've got my navigator telling me where to go. Reason being, because all these highways have changed, I don't even trust that I can just go the way I know to go there.
Yeah, sure.
Like I know where he is, but there's way too much that's happened up in the area that the hotel was that I was meeting him at. So I'm like, I'm using my navigator. So all of a sudden, what do you know? Traffic releases. And I was like, oh, cool. See, yeah, inner being, right on track, knew what was going on, could see ahead. There was barely even a slowdown. Went from 70 to about 35 miles an hour. And within 2 minutes, we went back to 70. So I'm like, oh, it's all good. So, I'm listening to Abraham the whole time, having fun. And, within the next 2 minutes, red tail lights again, slowing down traffic. I get concerned. Hey, inner being, should I jump off the highway and go another route? And I get, nope, just stay where you are. Should I change lanes? Yeah, maybe I should just get closer to the right lane just in case. And it's like, nope, you're fine where you are. I'm like, okay, well, my inner being is not having any concern whatsoever. But I am.
Yep.
So I keep looking at the clock and going, okay, what if? And I'm thinking, do I have his phone number next in case I need to call him and tell him I'm going to be late? And I'm like, yeah, I know I do. And then boom, traffic starts flowing again. This goes on, I don't know how many times on this highway. And the highway is like the main stretch of my journey. And I knew it was supposed to take approximately 46 minutes, which meant since I left at 10 minutes after 8, I only had a 4-minute window of variation.
Which is fairly thin, yes.
Yeah, especially because it's rush hour in the morning. You never know what's going to happen. A new car accident could happen, since I checked my Google Maps. So anyway, I keep going. And now we hit major slowdown. I mean, I'm now stopped. I call it the parking lot. Nobody's moving. And I'm like, okay, this really makes me anxious. And I'm now in the left lane. There's not much I can do about it. I'm stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, inner being, am I going to be on time? And I get yes. I'm like, okay, you clearly know something that I don't know.
Okay.
Really? And I get yes. And I'm like, for sure? And I get yes. I mean, I am like, I'm not kidding with you. I'm asking this many times in a row. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to clear my energy path and, I'm going to deep breathe and I'm going to ask again. Okay, am I going to get there on time? Yes. I'm like, okay, there's nothing more I can do to like get a different, I don't think I wanted to hear no, but I was just concerned. What if I'm not hearing today? What if all of a sudden my guidance system went wonky?
And apparently your guidance system doesn't have a sense of humor. It could have said something like, we have no new information since the last time you asked that question. Right?
I just kept getting, it's all good. I mean, my favorite phrase, it's all good. And I'm like, okay. So then we start moving a little bit. And now, and I wasn't even thinking of this, there's a major highway that there's an on-ramp for the major highway. And that's what was causing that particular stall.
Okay.
Because the right 2 lanes were almost a parking lot because I'm now in the left and I'm starting to move. I'm like, oh, it's the slowdown because everyone's trying to get on I-30. Oh, okay. So I'm feeling like, oh yeah, now that we're past this, we should fly. So I'm getting up on speed 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. I'm feeling good. And by the way, the speed limit is 70. And so just in case you were thinking.
just to be clear,
I do
right.
Speed. Yeah, I do speed, but I wasn't here.
Not this time. Okay.
So I'm doing 70 and I'm feeling really great. And I'm like, yay, I-30's behind me. And all of a sudden, red tail lights again. And we're slowing down to 25 miles an hour.
This does sound like a typical rush hour, by the way. This sounds very, very common.
Well, and I was attempting to remember back to over 10 years ago when I used to go into rush hour traffic. And I went, if this was an everyday occurrence, I would have a built-in knowing where all the slow spots are. And I would have a built-in knowing of how it ebbs and flows.
Right.
But I didn't have that as my reference point anymore.
Yeah.
And so it all felt new to me, and it felt real. It's like putting me in a brand new city I've absolutely never been in and have no idea what the traffic flow is. That's kind of how this was for me, because even though I live in the Dallas area, the Dallas traffic is very different than what I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention, none of the visuals are what they used to be either. Everything has changed. They've knocked down highways. They've built new high rises. And I'm like, I don't even, here I am in my own town and I don't know where I am. So anyway, I keep going. Needless to say, all of a sudden I get to the point where I'm like, okay, I kind of almost know where I am. I'm getting closer. And I hear my navigation say, in a half a mile, take the exit onto such and such, onto, I think, Loop 12. And so I know where Loop 12 is, and I'm feeling confident, like, okay, it's good. And before I know it, I mean, I swear it was like 50 feet. I'm like, uh-oh, there was an exit. Is that the one they meant for me to take? They said a half a mile. I haven't gone a half a mile. I don't know. Did I just miss it? I went, well, if I did, it'll reroute me. And to this moment, I still don't know if I went the wrong way. But eventually, it routed me to go in an area that I saw some buildings off in the distance that made me get a sense of I'm in the right area, even though to me I'm backwards. But I'm like, I'm just going to follow navigation. Well, navigation got me there. 8:59, I'm pulling up in the parking lot.
Wow.
Because my intention was I wanted to be walking in the lobby doors at 9 o'clock because I told them, let's meet in the lobby at 9 o'clock. So I was totally on time.
That worked really well.
But it felt like a really harrowing experience. Now, granted, I know I'm making probably more of this than is necessary because this, to most people, is just a normal traffic morning.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it was an experience of recognizing I was not 100% trusting my guidance. And that bothered me. Because, my whole Project X, my whole new career plan is based on, I got inner guidance that said, quit your job and trust that we will show you every step along the way for your new career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And here I am on day 4 of my new career, trusting. And I'm like, but on day 3, I was not very trusting. And I'm like, if I can't trust something like getting in a car and driving from point A to point B, what's up? Because I just set myself up for an entire lifetime of just trusting that I'm going to get the guidance that's required to live my life in a successful way. So I looked at that, wasn't quite sure what to do with it. This morning, my text goes off, wakes me up, my coaching lovely friend Rhonda. Hey, if you have time, do you want to talk today or tonight? And I said, now is good.
Understandable.
So she's like, oh, I'm so sorry I woke you. I said, are you kidding? This is the greatest reason to wake up that I can think of. I get to have, a conversation with my lovely friend.
Yeah.
And we always spin the energy in a great way.
That's nice.
So she starts talking about what she wanted to talk about. And before I know it, I start bringing up my drive yesterday and this evidence thing, because her thing had a little bit to do with evidence too, where she's like, I feel like I've cleared all the resistance that I'm aware of, but I'm not seeing any evidence of the new thing showing up.
Well, that's an evidence thing for sure.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, while we're on the topic, let me tell you what happened to me yesterday. So I told her the same story I just told you, and we start working with it. And before we realize, we get to the other side of it, because I kept saying, how is it I put more faith in what I can see and the evidence of what's in front of me, the what isness of it, than my own inner being that I have come to trust so implicitly that I actually quit my job and gave up a secure income. That's how much I trust my inner being's guidance. And here I'm not trusting my inner being to see the traffic in front of me. It's like, that bothered me. And I want to change this. So believe it or not, it was connected to all sorts of things in my life. And we worked out my other stuff. We worked out her stuff. And at the end, we both came to the awareness, yeah, we are going to trust more in our inner being's guidance than we are in what we see, because what we see is old news. And we don't always know what's in front of us. And so I was like, okay, that felt really good from an energetic place. Well, then I was at my computer a little while ago, and I decided to listen to an Abraham clip. And you know how on YouTube they roll from one clip to another, to another, to another?
Right.
So I was on like the 4th clip when all of a sudden Abraham got my attention. I went, whoa, stop everything I'm doing. Replay that last sentence. Then I pulled up my second monitor. I started typing their words, word for word. And all of a sudden, I got this new awareness that, they're words that I've heard them say gazillions of times, but now it matched what I was dealing with regarding evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it had to do with how we so focus on what is, because it's in our face. And here's the piece I had never really realized, or the piece I hadn't implemented, that when something doesn't feel good, it's because these are now Wendy words. When something doesn't feel good, it's because we're not following the guidance. Our guidance will always allow us to feel good. And now I mapped it over to my experience yesterday. Every time I saw the red tail lights and the slowing of traffic, I went into worry and panic mode. That did not feel good. But when I was in it doesn't feel good, it never registered with my brain, oh, I'm experiencing a not feel good moment. which means I must not be focused on my truth. Did you get that?
Yeah, I get it. And the thing that gets me is, I mean, when I say gets me, I'm really not stating that properly. The thing that I notice is that perception is everything in this, because when you were describing the traffic and how it was basically what they call stop and go. You go for a bit and then you stop for a bit, and you go for a bit and you stop for a bit. And where rush hour traffic is concerned, that's actually pretty good. And if you get that in rush hour, you're moving along fairly well. If you have a really unusual day where everything just keeps moving, boy, you just celebrate that one. But stop and go, that's fairly normal. And yet, because you hadn't been in it in quite some time, it felt like, oh my God, this is something to get panicky about.
Because that was no longer within my normal realm of experience.
You're right. It wasn't part of what you normally thought about. But I was also thinking about, and this is expressed really nicely in a movie, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, that came out a few years ago. In that movie, one of the characters says, I don't know why they call it rush hour. Nothing ever moves.
Good point.
And when you look at it that way, the fact that something was moving, that was actually pretty good. So it's all the perception, right? It's how did you look at it?
Yeah. But it really, and this is what I learned today, this is not about traffic at all. This was totally about, throughout my whole experience with Project X, do you remember back in probably months 2, 3, and 4, I kept talking about evidence. I'm looking for the evidence. I'm looking for the evidence to know that things are really moving along.
Right.
Okay. Well, I've come to recognize today, literally today, every time I was seeking the evidence, I was putting a drag on the process or the momentum of going forward. And Rhonda had this great illustration. Have you ever seen a drag car and they're going at such incredible pace that in order to stop their momentum of going forward when the race is over, this giant balloon comes out of the back of their car to pull them back?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the chute. So when she was telling me that, I got this mental image of the parachute having these giant words that said, "This is the evidence we're slowing down."
That's good. I like that.
And I thought about that today. And every time I am seeking evidence of something to come that I desire, it's like the balloon popping out, dragging me back, pulling the momentum back, like stopping the momentum, slowing me down and saying, if you keep requiring evidence, Wendy, you're just slowing down the process.
Good point.
I was like, whoa, I hadn't really seen it that way.
Yeah.
But the piece that really, really jumped out at me is when I was listening to Abraham today, because I really forgot in this instance the feel good versus feel bad idea. If it feels good, it means I'm aligned to truth. I'm aligned to my inner being. We're on the same page. If it feels bad, uncomfortable, worrisome, panicsome, aggravated, whatever, it means I'm focused on something that is not true. It's not the way my inner being is focused. And it's causing me to suffer needlessly. And I went, wow, I kind of put myself through a blender yesterday. 46 minutes or so on the road. And I'm like, oh my God, that was a lot of energy. Well, first of all, I'll say this. No wonder I wanted a work from home job. Because if that's how I treated myself in traffic, and I do recall every time I was in traffic before, that's what I would go through. No wonder it was a miserable experience for me. And which is why eventually I learned to take all back roads to my office, even though it still took an hour, but it was more predictable traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where highway to me was way too unpredictable. And so I feel like I'm here to make a declaration. I am no longer requiring the universe to provide evidence to me of something that I'm wanting to manifest for me to completely get on board with it.
Good.
I'm willing to trust that when my inner being says yes or no, I can trust that because my inner being sees the big picture. And all I could see was maybe, half a mile of red taillights. But my inner being sees the entire highway. They see the entire, traffic pattern.
It's
but
funny.
I think I was probably more disappointed in myself. And I don't mean disappointed like, ooh, bad, but just I was kind of shocked. I didn't realize that I had little pockets or I had compartmentalized where I trust my inner being's guidance and where I didn't.
Oh, yeah. That's normal, I think. I don't think there's anybody on earth who doesn't do something like that. I mean, I'm not talking about inner being necessarily.
I don't want to be normal, Walt. I don't want to be normal.
Well, I've known that for quite some time. Yes, you're right.
Remember, I'm weird.
That's
and
true.
I do weird in a wonderful way.
But you're Pollyanna weird, which makes it even better.
But this was a huge, talk about message from the universe. This really got my attention in a really powerful and positive way, because I made this declaration with Rhonda today, and she made it right back to me. We're partners in this. We're no longer going to allow what is to dominate our attention. What is old news. What is not the same thing as what our inner beings know to be what's on its way.
Now, the thing that's going to capture my attention is I'm going to be kind of, well, not monitoring because that's probably too close, but I'm going to be on some level aware and wondering how well you're going to stick to this. Because in my experience, when I find myself compartmentalizing, as you describe it, doing it sometimes, but other times not doing it, I find that for myself, it's not so easy to make the shift. Say, okay, I'm going to do it all the time now. I get it better at it perhaps, but I never am able to get that complete shift over. So I'm going to be watching to see, can you really do that? Because if you can, I'm going to say, hey, teach me how you did that.
The answer is, yeah, I can do it.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean that overnight, every area of my life, all of a sudden it's going to be easy breezy. But I will tell you, I am so committed to practicing what I'm talking about that my intention is the moment I second guess my inner being, and I know it's still okay for me to second guess, because I know I'm not really second guessing my inner being. I'm really second guessing, am I in the space to receive the answer
right? Oh, yeah.
accurately?
Yeah, that's what it really
so
is.
So I'm cool with that. But my new intention is the moment I sense I'm focused more on red tail lights, and of course I'm using that now as just a metaphor to symbolize any time I'm focused on something that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, right.
The moment I recognize this does not feel good, I want to make an immediate pivot and go, whoa, that's not where I like to be. I don't want to point my focuser on what I don't want. I want to point my focuser on what I do want. Like, I'm going to get there on time. I always get there on time. Everything's always good. I've never missed an appointment. Why would I think this would be the first? Heck no, of course I'll get there on time. Traffic will ease up. If there's a point in which it's appropriate for me to jump off the highway and take an alternate route, my guidance is going to let me know. It always does. And I've had times when I've gone from a point A to a point B, and I've been guided, get off the road, and I didn't have my navigation system on my phone queued up, and I'm not a texter and driver. So unless I'm at a stoplight, I don't touch my cell phone. And I said, okay, inner being, it's you and me. Show me where to go. Show me how to get there, because I don't know. And I get there later on. I'll look on a map. It's the most direct route I could have possibly gone.
Very nice.
I get there on time. But see, when it's not an important thing, it was easy to trust that. But this had a timing issue. And, this friend of mine could only be here until a certain time. Then he had to leave to the airport to go home.
Right.
And that put a whole different level of importance on me arriving on time. But what was interesting, I was willing to have gone an hour and a half in advance and just sit there in the hotel lobby and wait. And my inner being said, nope, you can sleep in. I'm like, okay. And then when I wanted to leave at 8 o'clock and some things happened that caused me not to be able to leave until 8:10, I'm like, oh, am I going to be on time? And I go, yes. It's like my inner being had been navigating this the whole time for me. But I was not in complete trust. I was in trust when it felt good. And then when I saw red tail lights, it didn't feel good anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you go ahead and monitor me, Mr. Walt.
I will. You can count on it. and I don't mean that in like, I'm going to be watching out for you. Yeah, I mean it in terms of, I really want to see if you can do it, because that's not the easiest thing to do. That's not the easiest transition to make. And if you're making it and you're making it all the way, it's like, wow. This is something to learn from.
I've never made a commitment that I've not been able to keep.
Well, then I don't expect that you're going to change your pattern now. But it's still going to be fun to watch.
But this one feels too important. And of course, when I say that, of course, there have been things that I've, quote, committed to, but it was more like I gave lip service to it, or I was at a seminar where they get everybody to say, yes, we're going to do that now, you know. But I don't commit to things today without knowing I have the tools, the wherewithal, and the ability to actually follow up and do it. Because I don't like to not be a person of my word. So I'm going to commit to this. This whole Project X is what actually initiated me to hone in on my ability to trust the signals that I get to know when my inner being is speaking with me and what those signals mean.
Well, more than that, yes, certainly it's about trust, but it's also about confidence, isn't it? I mean, the confident belief that this thing you're going to trust in really is there, really it's guiding you, really that the guidance is real, the messages are real, and you know, that part alone is a big thing. I mean, on top of it, making it accurate so that, you know, you're getting the quick truth there, that's like almost gravy on top. But just believing it and feeling confident about it, that confidence is huge.
Well, do you remember many months ago on one of the shows, I said something that you said, wow, that really surprises me, Wendy. I didn't expect that coming from you.
A few times, probably about once every other week, but yeah.
I said something about, I want to have a new relationship with my inner being.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I want my inner being and me to be like pals, that we hang out, we have conversation, instead of it being kind of a cold robotic thing I check in with every now and then, like a sensor. I didn't use those words then, but I think I used to think of my inner being like a sensor, like, you know, I'll press it and go, hey, give me a sensor reading, you know, are we on target or are we not? But I wasn't really thinking of my inner being as me in a personal way. And I said, I really desire that personal relationship with my inner being, where it's my pal, my friend, we do everything together. And over time, that is what has developed. And as I've practiced asking questions, listening for the answer, and then seeing what shows up, it's been right on so much of the time that that's where the confidence has come from.
Okay.
I have confidence in the results that I had gotten. So in other words, if I asked, am I going to be on time? And I get a yes, and I keep asking, and it's yes, 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 it's all good. And then I show up on time, that becomes evidence that I'm trust that what I'm receiving from my inner being, or what I feel I'm receiving, is accurate. And I've now had so many of those experiences that that's how I got to the point that I feel such a level of confidence that I was able to trust that when I heard August 17th is your last day, I went, wow, cool. And boom, I made the decision. August 17th was my last day. I didn't ask why that particular day, why so long, why not longer, is it based on anything? It was August 17th, and I went, okay. But if we were to scroll backward to like the beginning of my journey, like let's say back to January, February, or March, that would not have been sufficient for me. I would have wanted many more factors to have been told to me so that I could then weigh it in my own mind and validate it with my own sense of logic, my own sense of internal intelligence, if you will.
Well, also, aren't you also here kind of taking advantage of what Abraham teaches about what a belief is? A belief is a thought that you think over and over again. You're setting up these experiences. You continue to experience the experience over and over again, and it creates the belief, and the belief becomes confident.
Yes. And that was actually one of the things that Abraham said in the piece that I listened to today about a belief being nothing more than something you think about often enough, and then that becomes true for you. And so I realized that with my traffic scenario, I have evidence from past conditioning, past experiences, that when there was a lot of red lights there, with taillights, there was going to be a huge delay in time. And what it usually did is it put me in a bodily situation where my small bladder, the little sensor, would go off and say, need to go to the bathroom now. And I'd be in the left lane, couldn't get off to exit even if I wanted to. And it put me in an emotionally and physical painful scenario.
Mm-hmm. And
so I kind of became highly sensitive to that. And traffic was one of the areas where I felt like, oh my God, I'm stuck. Like if I'm at a seminar and I have to go to the bathroom, I just get up and I go. I don't care if somebody's speaking. There's nobody there. There's no armed guards at the door.
Sure, yeah.
But it changes when you're stuck in traffic and you're not moving and you don't know how long you're not going to move. And so because I've had so many of those experiences, and I also have a whole lot of beliefs behind that, which made those experiences true, that what is was solid for me. I mean, Walt, it was solid. Red taillights equal emotional and physical pain for Wendy. In therapeutic terms, that's a triggered response.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
But I believed in that so much because it has happened for me so much. And every time it happened, I added another piece of evidence, another experience that said, see, it's true. See, it's true. See, it's true. And I knew that today when I was talking with Rhonda, I needed to knock down all the see, it's true bricks so that I could go, see, it's not true at all.
That's a good point.
I made it true. Yeah, I made it true, but it doesn't mean it's true.
Right. It's a good point because ultimately every belief we have is a belief we built up over time. We built it up through our petition. And you just described very nicely how you both had built up a good belief, but you also built up with this other belief that didn't serve you at all. That was, here it is again. Oh, here it is again. Both of them were beliefs.
Now I had two beliefs in contrast, in conflict.
In conflict, yeah, right.
And so I was never sure as I was driving yesterday which one was going to win, which belief would win out.
Which is probably that's where all the discomfort came from, I would think. You weren't sure which one was going to be.
And I kept thinking, okay, am I in a state of hopefulness that my inner being's right, or do I really trust that my inner being's right?
Big difference.
And I was somewhere in between the two. And I know it's because this other belief that was a triggered belief that, when you're stuck in traffic, this could cause emotional as well as physical pain. That was so real to me. That one was much easier to believe in the moment because I have run that pattern probably since I was a child. So that was those were two really powerful conflicting beliefs. And so I'll give you this illustration, something I learned from Tony Robbins, and I love the visual of this. Now, granted, we know that Abraham says that a belief is a thought you keep thinking over and over.
Right.
Well, the way Tony describes it, it's a little bit different, but I think they're very simpatico with one another. He says, if you think of a belief like a tabletop with legs, goes, let's say you have a table with 4 legs. Okay, you know that table is solid because we know that 4 legs make something sturdy enough that it's not going to fall over if the wind blows, right?
Sure, yeah.
But and the belief is what's at the top. So let's say the top of the belief is traffic causes emotional and physical pain. So I have 4 legs under that table. Well, now let's say I'm in a traffic jam again. It's like I put a 5th leg under the table. Now I go out into traffic another time and oh my gosh, I got stuck in traffic. I almost peed my pants. It was like really bad, lots of emotional distress, by the time I finally made it out and found a place where there was a bathroom, but I was panicked the whole time. Okay, I put a 6th leg under that tabletop. And every time I have another experience that fortifies that belief, it's like putting another leg under that table. And so I would say for me, I have about 80 legs under the table called I believe that, red taillights means to Wendy, it's going to be another emotional, physical, stressful experience.
And of course, being a tall person, my first thought is I'll never get my legs under that table.
You wouldn't. So when I was talking to Rhonda today, and I recognized where I was at with this, because she'd asked me questions, and I'm like, oh no, this traffic belief, it's solid. It's almost stone. Well, why? I have like 80 legs under the table.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot to push this table over. But I said, I know that that's what my mission is. I need to be able to knock all the legs out from under this table so that the tabletop just, boom, falls on the floor. And so we did some work together. That's what we do as coaches. And when we were done, the belief over here, a second table, that was my belief that says, I trust my inner being implicitly to guide me in all cases and all times to take me where I need to go, ended up with many more legs under that table. As a matter of fact, and I'm just going to be joking about this, I borrowed the legs from the first belief and I stuck them under the second belief. Like,
okay,
you don't, that tabletop isn't in need of these legs anymore. But it's like my belief now that my inner being is going to guide me beautifully throughout the rest of my life in all areas, including traffic, is really solid and sturdy now. And so I kind of like the metaphor of a belief having multiple legs under the table, because it kind of gives me an idea of how solid is that belief in place versus, if it's on 3 legs, it can still stand. It just don't lean in the area where there's no leg because it could fall over.
Very easily.
And that's kind of representative of beliefs that we're trying to establish that are brand new to us.
So I guess then if we go to the old cliche about not having a leg to stand on, that's basically having a belief that has barely even gotten started yet.
Yes. So if you come up with an idea that you want to believe in, but it feels really wobbly to you, it's because you might only have one leg and the tabletop is balancing, but you're kind of borrowing your arms and your body for the rest of it to not fall down. But then if you keep thinking on it and you start getting some other things in your life that kind of support that belief, it's like, okay, now I've put 2 legs under there. And maybe strategically a tabletop could sort of stand, depending on what it is, what it's made of, with 2 legs. But then as you start to focus on it more and it feels more real, it's like you're putting a 3rd leg under there. And then if you keep focusing, and now you're like starting to get some life evidence of, yeah, this belief really is real. It's like you put a 4th leg under there. And now when you have 4 legs, you've got some stability. And over time, because now you're believing this and it feels so real to you, of course, law of attraction is going to continue to bring more evidence of the same. And now you end up putting multiple legs under that table. And after a while, that belief ain't going anywhere anytime soon.
Makes
it's
sense.
Solid.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I'm finding new ways to look at what is. I think it's interesting that I've been listening to Abraham forever, and I've heard them talk about what is, and I've heard them talk about if it doesn't feel good, it means you're not lined up with truth. Heard that so many times. Quoted it to clients so many times. And it has been evident in my life as to how that's real, but now it's evident in a new area because I didn't know that there was this one place that I wasn't completely using my tools. It's kind of like, and this is common, I think, when we get triggered into a feeling, like I see red taillights, boom, I go into this triggered response. It's almost like I went back into a childhood state of panic, and I wasn't the adult woman, Wendy, on this podcast who has great confidence that if I recognize, I was feeling bad, well, then that means that's not my truth, and I'll abort that one. I wasn't in that state of being. I was more in the juvenile, childish place because for me, when Rhonda and I worked on it, it went back to my childhood. And so, boom, I just reverted back there so quickly. But that's the thing that happens without us realizing we're doing it until we realize we've done it.
Oh, yeah, or until it's pointed out or something along that line. But you're right. It's so easy to do it and not be aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today was a banner winning day, and I have to say it was brought to you by me no longer being in the job and me living the life that I feel like I've always desired, which is to live a life being guided. Um, After I woke up and we had this lovely conversation, I had some breakfast, and then I'm like, I feel like it's time to take a nap. And I went, wow, that's a luxury, a luxury I now can afford.
Mm.
You know, and I checked in with my inner being. Is there anything required of me? Do I need to do something? Because I was at my computer for a short time, but it felt like I'm spinning my wheels. And I went, is it because there's nothing I need to do today at my computer? And I got, yep, you can walk away. I went, cool, I'm done. Because I've been doing some heavy duty work, you know, getting my business tools and business things in place the last couple of days, you know, working till like midnight because it was fun, not because I had to. So I worked really late last night until I went, okay, I think my eyeballs are going crossed. And it was like, okay, then go to bed. And I went, okay. So I love this freedom. This is my style. This is the way I work.
Well,
Now, other
plus,
people really love structure,
mm-hmm.
but I like the structure of non-structure.
Well, I understand it. Plus, this is something where you're doing something pretty unusual. You're listening to and following inner being, and not only is it unusual, it's something that most people don't even have the skill to do, but you're doing it. That's pretty well. First of all, it gives you great credentials when you're working with your clients. But secondly, I mean, that's just pretty darn cool because you get these great insights, and the insights don't lead you wrong. They don't lead to bad results. They lead to good results, and over time, you're becoming more and more confident in them. Like that's very cool.
Well, and if any of our listeners are going, well, good for you, Wendy, you know, but that's not what my life looks like. I don't share the stories that I share to go, ha ha, look how good my life is. I share my stories to say this is what's possible. Because 20 years ago, I wouldn't have believed this was possible unless I saw somebody else do it. But when I see somebody else can achieve something that I didn't think was possible, it kind of puts a chink in my belief that it's not possible. And then I start to ask, well, how can I make that possible to me? And I was certainly in that place many years ago where I was watching other people live what I considered a charmed life. Everything they touched turned to gold. And I went, I want that. I want everything that I touch turned to gold. I want a life of ease because all I knew was hard work ethic equals a paycheck, and you can live paycheck to paycheck. That's how I grew up. And I saw how my father did not work very hard. And we were always in a state of lack. And all four of us kids in our family, we all have work ethics like you would not believe as a result of seeing what my dad's lack of work ethic looked like. Because none of us wanted to grow up in lack anymore because we were tired of that one.
Mm-hmm.
So we all work really hard. And then as I came into more of a metaphysical awareness and a more spiritual teaching about what was possible, I was hearing that it was not required to work hard and have great benefits. And that, I'll tell you what, felt really unbelievable to me. I don't mean like, wow, that's unbelievable. I mean like, I don't believe that. Because working hard and getting a result is what I had lived for so many years. And it worked. I just never could get ahead that way. But I didn't know anybody in my personal life that ever really did get ahead. So that's what I believed in. You just work hard, you work paycheck to paycheck, and then you die.
Well, now that you've
And
teased
so,
us with the idea of being able to make the shift, make the switch, and start trusting inside and do it successfully, then clue the rest of us in. What's the secret, or what are the secrets? So, and I don't mean the Rhonda Byrne secret. I mean, how do you do it?
being willing to trust that we were put on this planet knowing that we would have the bigger, broader part of ourselves remain in non-physical and be continually guiding us through this physical life. When
That's how
I
you
got a
start
hold of
that.
that idea and that started to become very believable, That's when my life started shifting and moving in another direction. Did I stump you?
Nope, that's good.
Okay.
So now the next question is
No.
no. So the next question is okay. So you that's how you started the idea. Now, how did you start building the legs? Because you described how you were building legs. You were adding legs to the table, right? So how did you add the
Right.
legs?
Well, I literally started asking my inner being questions like, hey, if you're real, would you kind of show me a way to start communicating with you that will become something where we can communicate? Because you don't use words. You're not human like me. And so at one point, I remember taking a course, don't even remember which one, and it taught me about learning yes and no signals with my inner being. And at first, it felt really wobbly. I'd ask questions, and then I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm getting a yes, but I don't know if it's really a yes. Or I'm asking a different question. I think I'm getting a no, but I don't really know if it's really a no. And so I just kept doing it over and over and over until I'd say, well, this is the one that I got a yes on, and I won't really know if the yes is really a yes until whatever the event is comes to a conclusion, and then I'll know if it was right or not. And I wasn't always right. I mean, it took me a good while to start to practice this, and I had nobody in my life who was doing this at the same time, so I was doing this very solo. And there wasn't that much metaphysical information, quote, out there when I started doing this.
Which makes it
but now
even more challenging that way.
Now
because...
now there's a plethora of people doing what I'm talking about. And so really, when I think of law of attraction, the biggest benefit that I've gained by studying with Abraham Hicks for as long as I have is, yes, I understand the principles of law of attraction, but the biggest gain has been making the connection to my inner being, to the bigger part of me, because nobody cares more about me than me.
True, yeah. And I can see how that's the big part, because not only has it given you that connection to the inner being, which is huge all by itself, but that ties into your whole quantum leap thing, doesn't it? Because without that connection, you really can't do any quantum leaping.
Okay, I don't know how you heard me talk about quantum leaping, that you made that connection.
Oh, well, every time you described it to me, you were always checking inside, so I figured they were connected.
Oh, as a coach, I learned how to do the quantum leap processing. I won't say it was without the guidance of my inner being, but I'll say once I made that connection, the quantum leap happens so easy and so fast. Where before it was a process that I learned, but it was very hit or miss. Sometimes I got good results, sometimes I didn't get any at all. Now, with the assistance of my inner being, because I'm constantly tapped in to source energy, now when I do those kinds of quantum leap processes, I'm continually guided to what to say, how to do it, because my inner being knows what will get to the heart of the matter. Where when I was trying to do it without my inner being, that's when it was kind of hit or miss. Does that make sense?
It's almost like built-in tracking or something.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, you're using the inner being like a guided missile would use the radio signal to indicate, no, adjust to the right, no, adjust to the left, all that kind of thing.
I would agree, and I would say today I go nowhere without my inner being. Why would I?
Well, yeah.
It's like
most
people
like
won't go anywhere without their cell phone. Well, my inner being is way more potent than a cell phone. Because if I don't have my cell phone to turn on my GPS, I may not know how to get to where I want to go. But I can go somewhere without my cell phone today and tap into my inner being and just ask for directions, and I will get them.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because I had something I was going to do at 12:30 today, and I had to interrupt it because a minor emergency came up with the gardening business. I had to go off and help out one of our sales reps, and in the process of doing that, I had to meet her at a property where she was doing a consult for a customer. The only problem was my cell phone has been giving me difficulties. Like the battery isn't operating the way it's supposed to. The phone doesn't respond the way it's supposed to. And just started happening today. So I couldn't bring my phone with me. I had to leave it on charge. And I got in the car. I had printed out something from Google Maps, so I knew how to get there. And I kind of knew that area anyway, but not really well. Not certainly like my wife does, who's been driving all over the place for the last few years doing this stuff. But nevertheless, I knew kind of where I was going. So I got there, and I was fine. And then we had to go someplace else. And I followed her there because I didn't have my GPS. So now I'm feeling really lost because I don't have my GPS, right? I don't have my cell phone. I don't have any of that stuff that I'm used to. And that didn't feel very good. Didn't feel very good at all. Well, we got to the second place, did the stuff we had to do there, and then we agreed we were going to go back to the office so that I could fix something on her phone. That was the main reason I was meeting with her. And I knew that the road I needed to take, the main road, was kind of over there, pointing in a particular direction. I knew it was in that direction, but I wasn't quite sure how to get there from where I was. And so she took off. And our cars were pointed in opposite directions, but I knew that you could get there either way. So she went off her way, I went off my way, and I'm driving along and saying, I really wish I had Wendy's GPS.
You mean what I really heard you say is, I really wish my sense of connection to my inner being was strong like Wendy's, so
Exactly.
I was really trusted at this moment.
Which is my long-winded way of describing how not only can I kind of align with that story you were telling about the cell phone and about the GPS and about how your inner being got there. But it's my way of saying, wow, I'd really like to have that skill that you have. That's a good one to have. That's why, I wasn't just asking just to be the host asked, so how do you get to this place? I'm really inside, I'm saying, I want to know how to get to this place. It's a serious question. So, yeah. More than we can do in 4 minutes, I know, but still.
Yeah, I don't know that I can think of something right now off the cuff in terms of like how to test it, but really it's kind of like if you how we've tested law of attraction, think of blue glass, think of blue glass, think of blue glass,
right.
And then all of a sudden you're out driving and you see something made of blue glass. If you I think asking yes and no questions is the easiest way to begin to communicate with your inner being.
And I have tried that. I remember our conversation where you explained that to me previously, but about 2 months ago, something like that. And I have tried it. I haven't tried it consistently, perhaps. Maybe I should keep trying it. But each time I tried it, I kept getting silence. I couldn't detect anything. And it frustrated me.
Okay. Then for you, I'll give you a different tool.
Okay.
And other people, if yes, no doesn't work for you, go with this. Because I know you particularly, Walt, are much more kinesthetically sensitive, feeling sensitive.
True.
Go with if something feels light or if there's a density, which we would call heavy.
Oh.
So if you say, and I want you to do this out loud, say, my name is Walt.
My name is Walt.
And then kind of feel the sensations in your body. And there should be a lightness because that's true.
Okay.
Now say, my name is Garfield.
My name is Garfield. Oh, okay, yeah. I can feel the difference.
What does that feel like? How is that different?
Yeah, one was sort of up, one was sort of down. It was like one had a rising feeling, one had a sinking feeling.
Okay, so that sinking feeling to you would be your indication of a no signal.
Ah.
And that rising feeling would be an indication of a yes signal.
Of a yes. Oh, I'm going to play with that one.
That's so would it be in my highest and best good for me to go out to eat tonight versus at home? So would it be good to go out to eat? So ask that question. Would it be in my highest and best good to go out to eat tonight?
Okay. Would it be in my highest and best good to go out to eat tonight?
And what do you feel?
Nothing. I didn't get anything.
Okay. Well, then you know what? That question might have been too complicated for you because you're kind of at a beginner stage.
Okay.
So maybe start with things that are known commodities, like Walt and Garfield. Those were known commodities.
Uh-huh.
So, are clouds white, sometimes gray? Are clouds white?
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Even before I even say it, that feels good.
Okay. Clouds are green.
Ugh. It feels bad right there.
There you go. So that in itself gave you immediate indication.
Okay.
One felt light and one felt heavy and dense. And I liked your rising versus falling. You made it your own. So that's how I began getting to know my inner being, by asking questions.
Now I've got a good little game to play with myself to see how much I can build that up, because now I'm getting a signal. Now I know what to do. This is good.
Yay!
Thank you.
So now we're going to talk again next Tuesday, and I want to hear all about how those signals have begun to give you confidence in those yes and no's.
Well, I'll let you know how it works out. And we hope that you'll join us next time to find out how it works here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye for now.